going to recross the bridge, get back to Charleston, then we'll go up to North Charleston, and somewhere right up along there is where the Hunley is.
Take the exit on the right to I-26 toward North Charleston. Take the exit on the right to I-26 toward North Charleston. Right at the traffic light.
It's 91 degrees outside. Here it is, late September. Gotta love the South. Getting down here by the dockyards.
Turn left on North Hobson Avenue, then take the second right. Turn right on Supply Street.
The Warren Lasch Conservation Lab.
Arriving at 1250 Supply Street on the left.
Okay, it's Saturday, September 28th, 2019, and I'm here where the Hunley is located, the Lasch Conservation Center, right at Charleston Harbor in the dockyards area. This isn't really a museum. It is a working conservation laboratory. But they do have open hours on weekends. My original intention was to get a trip here on a weekday, and they will do that, but it costs $400 because they have to take somebody who's supposed to be working on the weekday and take them away from their job to show you around, and for that they charge. And then it turned out it was going to work better anyway for me to come today. I'm 15 minutes early. My appointment's at 3 o'clock. It's 2:15. They said they wanted us here at half an hour before our tour time. To stop the flow of supplies to the Confederacy, the Union implemented a blockade of all major southern ports. The blockade began a period of technological advancement in the South, when new and innovative methods were developed to combat the powerful modern Union fleet. A small band of Confederates began work on a new approach to naval warfare, one that took the fight below the water surface. They constructed a series of underwater weapons in hopes of breaking the Union blockade. This model of the Pioneer is the first of 3 submarines the group developed. Learning from each attempt, they ultimately built the Hunley, a weapon that would change naval warfare forever when she became the world's first successful combat submarine. So I'd originally said that there wasn't a museum here, but that was wrong. They do have one, as we're seeing.
City centre or something like that, you know, like how I deal with that.
So here we are. Again, welcome to the Lasch Center. What you see here is two views of Hunley. This is from top down. This is on the report on our left side. These were taken by a mapping device that was here shortly after she was brought from Charleston Harbor and placed here in the tank. The coloration represents what's called concatenation. Best way to explain concatenation is like powder that builds up on your teeth. exposed to biologics and all kinds of other funny stuff. It's really hard and really brittle. So over 130 plus years sitting outside Charleston Harbor, you know, the marine environment had a wall with the environment made around. So that's why the coloration, it's just a machine representation. It wasn't really that color. So what you see here is from bow to stern, she's 40 feet long. There's a 2-foot section behind the stern that is her rudder. Her rudder and the assembly is in conservation. That was salvaged separately before the hull was brought in.
Okay.
Another piece is the spar that held the torpedo down 16 feet from the bow. That was also brought up independently because they knew that if they tried to raise her, and they tried to raise her with the torpedo spar still on her, it would snap off. We wanted to bring her all in one piece for obvious reasons. So what you see here on both the left and the right of the starboard side are the dive planes. The dive planes are such, it's really like flying an airplane. The only really significant difference between a submarine and an airplane is the thickness of the fluid they're both flying through. Air is a little bit less thick than water is, but the idea of control surfaces are absolutely the same thing. So on a submarine, if you take those dive planes and you orient them down and you flood the ballast tank and increase the weight of the ship will submerge. If you orient them up and you drain the ballast, you lighten the ship, it should eventually come to the surface. So that's what those do. We'll talk about how they're controlled when we get up there. This is the forward hatch. You'll notice that there's a hinge here, but on the after hatch, you notice the hinge is here, so the hatch opens toward the bow. This hatch opens toward the stern. Reason for it. This is the commanding officer's position right here. So when this hatch opens up, then the commanding officer needs to be able to see what's ahead of them. Get a better view. Then you'll see it better here. I didn't mean to do that. So this is called a fair wall, and it's a solid piece of iron. It's not on the hull now. It catches in conservation. But what it has two things. One is it's to prevent things from wrapping around the forward tower. Second thing it does is it helps break the surface tension of the seawater as she's moving forward. It helps the hydrodynamics of the hull itself. This square box here is a snorkel box. She had a snorkel. You've been in a pool and you've got mask on, you've got a snorkel device. Well, same kind of idea happens here. Is that there was a tube, one on the port side, one on the starboard side, and there was a bellows that was operated by the gentleman who was in the first crank position right about here. One of those tubes was to exhale stale air from internal, and the other one was to ingest fresh air from outside. How effective that snorkel was, I can't tell you, we don't know. But the snorkel mechanics themselves were found intact when they did the archaeology inside the hull. The only thing that had degraded since she was in seawater was the fabric that comprised the bellows itself. But that whole assembly was in conservation and eventually be brought out to be placed on display, which is real kind of neat. From this point, from the back here, it's 11 feet. And in that 11 feet space, in an 11-foot space, there were 7 people. The tallest was 6 feet 1, the shortest was 5 feet 5. They sat side by side on the quarter of the left side of the ship, and they had the crank station. So things are a little tight. And I got a training aid upstairs to show you how tight that really is. I mean, I rode submarines for a living, but this is tight. So after hatch, it opens aft. The reason it opens aft is two. One is so the second in command can look at the prop and make sure there's nothing fouling aft. Second thing is this ship and the ships prior to this were designed to tow ordnance behind them. So on a line 200 feet behind was what they called a torpedo. In the 1860s, anything that went to sea was called a torpedo. We call this a mine today, but it was a torpedo back then. That worked fine as long as the water was calm, there wasn't a lot of cross currents, those sorts of things. It worked great in Mobile Bay in Alabama, which was kind of calm, provided it wasn't a storm. It didn't work worth a darn out here. As a matter of fact, they found out how bad that didn't work. When tide changed and Hunley was being towed by one of the ironclad torpedo ships, the tide change took a hold of that ordnance, wrapped it around, and just about blew both of them out of Charleston Harbor. So they decided that wasn't what we were going to do after that. So they changed it. That's when they went to the spar assembly, which we'll talk about when we go downstairs. Okay. Then down at the bottom here, this is a profile looking at the left of the port side of the hull. So here you'll see the fair water. Here's the forward station. Here's the snorkel box. Here's the after station. And then the rudder would come here. When we get downstairs, I'm going to point out the bracket that the torpedo spar actually set up. These two pieces here are 700 pounds each of cast iron. They were permanently attached to the hull at the bow and the stern. They were part of the ballast system. Between those two were a set of rectangular blocks. They were all attached to the hull by a quick release mechanism. And there were several of those quick release mechanisms stationed throughout the ship, such that if the ship got in a problem and she was submerged and she needed to change her weight quickly and come to the surface, the crew member could take a lever, turn it 90 degrees. There's a quick release mechanism and instantly drop those to the bottom of the ocean. It would change the hull by about 14 to 1,500 pounds as soon as it left the hull. That could be the difference between sinking and being able to come back to the surface. Possible. When she was found, all of those emergency ballasts were in position, the handles were in their locked position. There was no evidence of any attempt at all to try to release them. So that's a piece to keep in mind, and we'll talk about when we come downstairs. So with that then, let's go upstairs, we'll look at the hull, point out some of the things. I'll break out the training aid to give you a better visualization of how tight things really work, and we'll go from there. Okay? Welcome to the HL Hunley. So to set things up, she is now the HL Hunley. That was not her original name. She is a private ship today, as she was the day she was designed. She was never a Confederate state ship, ever. So if you see something in print or you see something in some sort of audio media that has CSS in front of Hunley, wrong. Okay, it was never a Confederate state ship. So what you see now is you see her in a fully righted position. When she was brought here the way she was found at the bottom of Charleston Harbor. She was submerged, leaning 45 degrees to starboard to her right side. She was raised up in that same condition, put in this tank in that same condition. Along about 2011, they had stabilized the hull enough such that they drained the tank and they righted the ship and put her in the condition you see now. This is a 90,000 gallon tank. The first fluid was fresh water that was chilled and had an electrical current running through it. The reason for the current was to try to mitigate the growth of bacteria and other fungus that would continue to degrade the hull. Long about after they righted her in 2011, they changed her from fresh water to a 2% solution of sodium hydroxide, which is essentially grain. Two purposes for that were that one, to help loosen the concatenation to make conservation of the hull easier. As you can see, she's clean. Yeah. They got all of the exterior concatenation off about middle of 2014. The other thing that the sodium hydroxide does is it helps leach chlorides out of the iron. Okay. And I used to say salt, and I got corrected, but now I say chloride. Scientists get mad when you say salt. Not salt, chloride. Look at that. But they need to bring that out so they can get her to stabilize to a point where they can put her on display. Not sure when that's going to be, maybe 5 or so-ish years, but they're not going to release her until they know about it, until they're confident. So that's the bow, that's the stern, you can see the prop. There's a cowling that goes around the prop, and you see a picture of it. So starting up here, here's the captain station. That fair water would be right along there, and it's been detached. You see this little port here? There's one here, there's one forward, and there's one immediately on the starboard side. Those are viewports. Okay? And there's set on there, and there's a set on the after. One of the theories of her sinking was there was a lucky shot from the rigging of Houston Continent that somehow or other got and caved in one of the lenses on one of these U-ports. And then the water from that, along with maybe some other things, and that might have caused the reason why she didn't come on. That's one theory. I'm not saying right, wrong, or different. That's just a theory. Okay. So here, this rod right here, this goes athwart ships, and it connects to the port diving plane or the starboard diving plane. And then see, there's a turnbuckle and there's a rod that goes up here. That goes up to the commanding officer station. What he had was a lever in his legs. It would be called a joystick today. It wasn't then.
Yeah.
But the way he controlled the dive planes was is that if he wanted the ship to dive, he would push that forward. The planes will orient down. They'd flood the ballast tanks, and down they go. They want to come back up, brace them up. The planes would orient up. They pump the ballast dry, and then the ship would rise. There was another. His tiller was up there also, and the tiller is what they used to control the rudder. So turn to the left to go to left, turn to right to go to right. Okay. So like I said, the rudder's for conservation. A couple other things I want to point out. All of the hull penetrations that you see now, these are hull pieces that have been purposely taken off so the scientists can do the archaeology and the anthropology on board the boat itself. They will eventually be put back on. But notice these ribs and the holes in them. If you took a look at the Pioneer on your way in, you saw that her hull pieces were kind of haphazardly laid over each other. Okay. One of the complaints about Pioneer was she leaked like a sieve. Okay. And she was riveted and had all kinds of bumps and other things that really hurt her hydrodynamics.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll notice that Hunley is relatively smooth all the way around. This is the third of the 3 ships that McClintock designed and built. So we learned a lot of lessons. Coming aft, you'll see here is one of the crank positions, and then here's the start of another one. There were 7 of these. The way you loaded the ship was the captain went in here. He was the only one that went in that hatch. The reason being is there's all kinds of mechanics and levers and lights and other stuff. Didn't want to place for a body that's going to slip. So everybody else loaded from the after hatch. So number 2, who was on the first crank position, all the way back. The second in command also was at a crank position. So this guy was busy. He had all kinds of stuff to do. He had control of the after ballast tank, seacock flooding valve. He had the ordnance to look out for. He had all kinds of things going on. These other guys were just cranking. Next thing I want to point out real quick is these. If all of these hull pieces were here, each one of those would have these 2 holes on the top. These are called deadlights. What they are is there's a 1-inch lens, glass lens, that sits on that flange. Then there's a gasket that sits on top of that. Then a ring is bolted to the hull. It's believed that the interior of the hull was originally coated in whitewash. So if there was a candle lit, then it would help disperse the light. Same thing with these, they were called deadlights. If you were surfaced, which was the main position that you would normally be in, and it was daylight, light would come in those deadlights and again would be able to diffuse throughout the hull. There were covers interior, such that the piping was such that it was cross-connected. The after pump could pump both ballasts dry, and the forward pump could do the same thing. There was also a position on the pumps where if they got water inside the ship itself, they could begin to pump the ladders and things are here. If the scientists need to get in here to do any sort of work, they're about 80% done on the main compartment itself. They're about 70% done on the ballast tanks. Obviously, they'll drain the fluid down, and then they'll get all dressed up, and they're protected to the respirators to do the work, and they'll raise it back up. Okay, so, and then if they go, and I don't know how long the period is, or yeah, 48 inches tall, floor to the top of the interior of the overhead, and 42 inches wide. That's it. Okay, so you're what, 6'2"?
Plus 6'1".
6. Okay, well the tallest member of the crew was 6'1". So imagine, I'm not going to ask you to do that because I can't do it. But you're on the crew, so the port side is the left, so you're over here, and you're crouched, and half of 42 is 21. Okay, well, you're going to take probably almost all I-20 engines just kind of been over. Okay, well, here's the rest of your world, because you're looking directly across to the side. Your in-flight entertainment, as I put it, is you're watching condensation roll down the inside of the hull directly across from you. There is a bench of sorts on the port side for the crew members to sit in, but the anthropologist told us, no, that's not where they couldn't sit down and crank. Because if they did, as they came up, they would crank beneath them. The way that they operated the crank was that as they came down, they had to squat. And then as they came up, they had to arch their back against the overhead, straighten their knees up, come this way, and then repeat it. They would do this from between 4 and 6 hours at a time. So they were pretty fit.
Yeah.
What do you think? Would you do that? No, I don't think I would either. But I really like this because it gives you an idea. Now, believe it or not, this 42 inches is wider than the torpedo tubes I used to dive and do maintenance and cleaning when I was riding submarines. But I didn't stay in that tube for very long. But it really gives you a sense. Now, the other thing I want to show you real quick is this is the forward and the after hatch. This is all the space you've got. This is it. So when you go in, it barely gets over my shoulders. I mean, this is it. So, 6'1" is, it's not 6'1", 98 pounds soaking wet. It's 6'1" with it. This is it. This is all you got. So, I like it. Okay. Pictures. Pictures tell 1,000 words.
Yeah. It looks more oval there than it does over there.
Yeah.
It does, yeah. So, one of the things, that's a theory, but these guys carried everything they owned with them. So they had all kinds of clothing and other material. One of the sailors actually had a Navy pea coat they had with him. That's a pretty small hull, and considering that she was on the surface when she made the attack on Houston, the chances of that being is significant. They couldn't pull somebody's t-shirt or something and plug that hole up, considering they're sitting almost on the surface. Not so much. Okay. Another of the theories is that when she was trying to get away from Houston after Houston sank, was that she was contacted or maybe straight by one of the other ships who were coming to the aid of Houston. Archaeologists, as they excavated the ship and done all the work on it, said there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever of any hostile action of any significant nature on the hull of any kind. So, theory number 2. This hole here, that's in the hull, this is a result of sitting on the seafloor for about 130 years and just friction, because the iron in the hull isn't uniform all the way through. So for some reason, but this isn't hostile, this is natural. And who's going to argue with scientists, right? They do this stuff for a living. So here's a picture of the cowling. This is half of it. All of the cowling is in conservation. Cowling around the prop did 2 things. One is it helped protect from lines and other things fouling the propeller blades themselves. Other thing it did is it increased the efficiency of the prop itself. So you got better thrust going after moving forward, and better thrust being able to bring you backwards. This is a picture looking from about midships back towards the propeller. I'm going to show you another picture of this gear mechanism and also this flywheel. Here's a picture of the cranking stations. Okay. Here's another picture of the reduction gears and the flywheel. We got a much better one when it was cleaned up. Let's see here. Okay, so here's the crank shaft which comes here to this gear. This is a reduction gear. So what a reduction gear does is it increases the efficiency. So in this particular one, for every full revolution that you have on this one, this smaller one turns 1.33 times. So you get an increase of efficiency of 33% for every revolution. Okay. This is a flywheel. A flywheel is like riding a bike. When you first get on a bike, you got to pedal really hard to get it going. But once you get it going, then you don't have to do much to keep it going. Flywheel does the same thing here. So theoretically what could happen is once they get to a sustained motion on this and the inertia in this flywheel, one of the members of the crew could actually go off the crankshaft and stand to the side, and this flywheel would mitigate the loss of that person on that station cranking the shaft. It works theoretically, they can prove it. See, another thing I wanted to point out while we're here, this is the depth gauge. This was found at Dixon Station when they did the archaeology. This is how they determined how deep they were in the water. So this had a glass tube that was attached to it, and this whole assembly is in conservation as well. They found it pretty much intact. The glass tube was gone. But there was a glass tube that had mercury in it, and it was graduated, and then this went to sea. So as you submerge, seawater would come in here, it would displace the mercury, and that would tell you how deep you were. They know that this is what was used. One is it was fairly common because submersibles were being researched and developed all the time. This wasn't the first submersible by any stretch of the imagination. This bottle here was found at Dixon's feet. It was found with mercury that was dated to the 1860s in. So we know there's some correlation between the two, which I think is really cool. Another thing I want to point out is this is a picture of one of the rivets that was taken out. This is why they're being so careful with making sure that they slowly insert the hull. This is when they pulled it out. This was set outside ambient temperature and all that stuff. This is about 6 months later. Same rivet. That's why they're being so careful about making sure that they got this as chloride-free as they can make it. Okay? So with that then, unless you got any specific questions, if you join me down right by these two big pieces of iron, we'll continue with the story to tell you about Dixon and also one of the members of the crew. All right. The story with Dixon begins in Mobile, Alabama in the late 18s. He named H.L. Hunley in honor of Hunley, who funded her as well as the two predecessors, was retroactively given the grade of captain in the Confederate Navy, was given full military funeral rights and buried here with two mates in Charleston. Okay? Fitting. So, he's over here now in Greentown. He's found us here about 5 nautical miles directly off the beach. Okay? So, the second time she sank was early October of 1863. We're now talking about Dixon gets here mid-October 1863. Gets her over here. So he's now essentially in the winter. In the winter time here in Charleston, the weather is terrible. It's cold, it's windy, the sea is angry. Not good for a normal ship, much less one that is barely 15 feet of solid iron and then 3 feet of hollow iron. And on the end of it is a charge, and this had 131 pounds of black powder in it. Then there was a chain that was used to help orient where that charge was, and I'll explain why that's important here in a second. And then there was this device here that was used as a sensor to realize when you were up against the hull of which you were targeting. Okay? So, the target that we had was USS Houston. She's the northernmost ship in the line. The Union forces during the Civil War did what was called. Well, if you'd stepped on his foot, he might have been. Well, that's probably the real thing.
I know which one I want to go to.
You want to go down to that? Early cutoff?
reserve the rest.
Exit through the gift shop. Alright, so the Hunley was definitely a worthwhile visit. It's something I've wanted to see for a long time. And of course I originally despaired of ever seeing it because nobody knew where it was. And then I was cheered to find out that they'd finally located it and raised it, and that it was in conservation. But I'm really pleased to have seen it here. And the way it was viewable in its conservation chemical tank was pretty good. The only real problem was the glare on the glass that separated the controlled environment from the observation deck. It was a little hard to deal with, but I think I got some pretty good shots of it. Certainly didn't have any problem just seeing it with the naked eye. So with a half-hour tour and about a half hour required to see the little museum up front, this could easily be done in an hour and small change. It's Sunday, September 29th, 2019, and this is really not apropos of much of anything else on my videos, but I happen to be driving from Charleston, South Carolina to the Richmond, Virginia area. It's a beautiful day for a drive. It's about 6 hours and change, and I was just sort of playing with the cruise control on my rented Toyota Camry here. First time I've driven a car that I know of that has the adaptive cruise control, so I set it a little bit faster than some traffic ahead of me and was just waiting for it to react, and it did. It's decided this slow-moving, whatever it is, truck up here is going to maintain its distance, so it keeps slowing me down. You can see from other traffic that it was going slower by quite a bit. But it worked. I was impressed. It just held that distance regardless of what the speed was. But that isn't really the reason I decided to make this little video snippet. It's that my observation driving down here from Virginia was that it seemed like, 90% of the interstate, that's I-95, was very much like this, just, surrounded by woods. There may be stuff just a little bit off to the side of the woods, but the perception of the driver is that you're in the woods almost all the time, which is kind of unique. I don't remember seeing that anywhere else. I drive through Wisconsin a lot, and there's big stretches of woods on I-94 and I-90 going through there, but they're further away from the road. It's cut clearer in a wider swath, and there's a lot of places on this stretch of road where the woods come, right down to the shoulder practically, and that's kind of cool. I like that vibe. At the same time, it's more and less boring than just driving when there's, you know, fields and things on either side of the car. You know, there's less variation, but what there is more immediate. So, just a random comment on my surroundings. Typical I-95 North and South Carolina scenery. They seem to be looking for handouts. They all came tearing over here as soon as we walked up. Maybe they like a mint.
Yeah, right. 5. 6.
This one climbed onto that one to get a better
1, 2, 3, 4,
snatch
5,
here.
6. That one's off the.
But they're not thinking very kindly of you since you don't have any food.
I know it.
Oh, there's some decent sized fish down there. Those carp down there, or whatever they are. Wow.
And here comes another one.